Okay, today we are looking at Math 6 Module 2 review. And we are looking at number 1. What is true about negative 1/6 and negative 2/3 when plotted on the number line? Select all of the true statements. So first of all, when we see the word number line, we want to have a visual aid to help us to do our best on this question. So I'm going to go ahead and make a number line. And I see that my numbers are both negative and they're both between 0 and 1. So I'm going to put, or excuse me, they're both between 0 and negative 1. So I'm going to put 0 on the far right, negative 1 on the far left. And I want to find a common denominator. The least common denominator between 6 and 3rd is 6. So this is already in 6, so I'll leave that as negative 1/6. And then the other one I want to compare is negative 2/3, but I want to write that in 6. So negative 2/3, I want to change that to 6. So negative 2/3 is equal to negative blank over 6. So to get from 3 to 6, I doubled my denominator. So here I need to double my numerator to get 4. Okay, so negative 4/6 and negative 1/6, those are the two numbers that we're comparing. So I want to count by 6. So here's negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and negative 6/6. So pretend those are all nice and even. So this is negative 1/6, negative 2/6, negative 3/6, better known as negative half, negative 4/6, negative 5/6, negative 6/6. So negative 1/6 will be just here, 1 tick mark to the left of 0, so negative 1/6. Negative 4/6 will be here, so there's negative 1, 2, 3, 4, negative 4/6. But really remember that negative 4/6 is actually negative 2/3. So we'll just write that below, negative 2/3. And now we have several statements and we need to select all of the statements that are true. So letter A says negative 1/6 is less than negative 2/3. Well, that's false because negative 1/6 is to the right. So I'm just going to write an F here. I'm not going to bubble that in, and I'm going to write an F for false. So I know I've already evaluated that statement and determined that it's false. Then letter B, negative 1/6 is greater than negative 2/3. That's true. Negative 1/6 is farther to the right than negative 2/3. So this is true. I'll write a T for true and bubble that in. Negative 1/6 is closer to 0. That's true. And the converse of it is false, and negative 2/3 is closer to 0. That's false. So this is true. This is false. Negative 1/6 is closer to 0, not negative 2/3. So this is true. C. C is false. We'll leave that blank. And then letter E and F. Okay, it's either 2/3 is to the left of negative 1/6 or 2/3 is to the right of negative 1/6. So let's see which one is true. So here's 2/3. Here's 1/6. 2/3 is to the left of 1/6. 2/3 is to the left of 1/6. So for number, and then that makes this false. 2/3 is to the right of negative 1/6 is false. Negative 2/3 is to the right of negative 1/6. That is not true. So our answers were B, C, and E. Number 2. Which point on the number line is the opposite of 1 and 25/100ths? So we look at our number line, we have to determine what they're counting by. Between 1 and 2, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 tick marks. So we know they're counting by 4th. Okay, so from 0 to this point is 1/4. So positive 1 and 2, 25/100ths will be right here at M. The opposite of negative of 1 and 25/100ths is negative 1 and 25/100ths. So that is going to be at point J. Okay, number 3. What is the least common denominator for 7/12, 5/8, and 1/6? So first of all, we have to find the multiple. So least common denominator, we use least common multiples of the denominators, LCM, to find that common denominator. So we're looking at 6, 8, and 12. 6, 8, and 12. Okay, so we want to list the multiples of each until we find the lowest common multiple. These common multiples, we have 6, counting by 6, 12, 18, 24. I'll stop there because I know they all have a multiple of 24, so we'll just go ahead to 8. You can always add on more if you need to. Multiples of 8 are 8, 16, 24. You could keep going, but I see the 24, and I know that 12 times 2 is 24. So our least common multiple is 24, which means that the common denominator is going to be 24, which is option C. Number 4, place an X in the table to show whether each inequality is true or false. So we have negative 1 8/10 is greater than negative 1/8. So when we look at these, let's take a look at, let's make a number line to help us compare these. They're both between, they're both negative. So I'll put 0 here, negative 1. This one's almost negative 2, so I'll put negative 2 here. And I'm just going to estimate. I know that negative 1/8 is just a little to the left of 0. Okay, negative 1/8. I'm just approximating with my graphing here. And then negative 1.8 is just a little bit to the right of negative 2. So it's almost negative 2, negative 1.8. So this says that negative 1.8 is greater than negative 1/8. That's false. Negative 1.8 is farther left. So that means it's smaller. Negative 1.8 is farther to the left. So that means it's smaller. So this should actually be the other way around. Negative 1.8, negative 1 8/10 is less than negative 1/8. So this is false. Then we have negative 9/5 is less than negative 95/100. Well, we know that as a mixed number, negative 9/5 would be written as negative 1 4/5. So negative 1 4/5 is actually equivalent to negative 1.8. So it's the same thing here, same point, negative 1 4/5. And then negative 0.95, negative 95/100 would be here, okay? Negative 0.95 is almost to negative 1. So negative 9/5 is farther left, so it is less than negative 95/100. So this one is true. Next, we have the absolute value of negative 2.4 is less than 2/4. Well, the absolute value means how far a number away is from 0, a number is from 0. So the absolute value of negative 2.4 is 2.4. So it's 2.4 less than 2/4, and we'll simplify that to 1/2. No, it's not. So this is a number that's greater than 2. This is a number that's less than 1. So this is false. 2.4 is greater than 1/2. 2 4/10 is greater than 1/2. So this is false. Number 5. The table below shows the temperatures of 4 liquids that a scientist is working with in a lab. Liquid A, negative 2.7 degrees Celsius, liquid B, 1.9 degrees Celsius, liquid C, negative 15 degrees Celsius, and liquid D, 18.5 degrees Celsius. If the freezing point of these liquids is 0 degrees Celsius, which liquid has a temperature that is closest to freezing? Now, it just says closest. It doesn't say above or below. So we're just looking at the absolute value. So the absolute value, and I'm just going to use T for temperature, degrees Celsius, okay? We want the absolute value of each of these numbers. Okay, and we'll just add another column here. Okay, so the absolute value of negative 2.7 is 2.7. The absolute value of 1.9 is 1.9. The absolute value of negative 15 is 15, and the absolute value of 18.5 is 18.5. So the one that is closest to freezing, and remember freezing is 0 degrees Celsius, closest to freezing would be this, the 1.9. So that would be liquid B. Number 6. Cyril has 36 daisies and 54 roses. He wants to put an equal number of daisies and roses into vases. What is the greatest number of daisies and roses Cyril can put in each vase? So we want to find the greatest common factor because we're dividing these up. We're not looking for multiples. We're not getting more than 36 daisies, and we're not getting more than 54 roses. So we want the greatest common factor. Okay, so we want the greatest number of daisies and roses that he can put into an equal number of vases, or excuse me, into vases. So let's go ahead and look at the factors of each of these numbers. First, let's look at the factors of 36. And then we will look at the factors of 54. Okay, so factors of 36, 1 times 36 will give us 36. Okay. 2 times 18 will give us 36. Okay, remember our divisibility rule for 3. A number is divisible by 3 if the sum of its digits is divisible by 3. You probably know this one by heart, but that's okay. 3 plus 6 is 9. 9 is divisible by 3. So therefore 36 is divisible by 3. 3 times 12 is 36. Okay, and then we should know by heart that 4 times 9 is 36. And then 5, it's not divisible by 5, okay, because it doesn't end in a 5 or a 0, but it is divisible by 6. 6 times 6 gives us 36. So these are all of the factors of 36. And then we'll list all of the factors of 54. So 1 times 54 is 54. Okay, we can divide it by 2 because it ends in a 4, which is an even number. Half of 50 is 25. Half of 4 is 2. 25 plus 2 is 27. So 2 times 27 is 54. It is divisible by 3. 5 plus 4 is 9. 9 is divisible by 3. So therefore 54 is divisible by 3. Okay, and that's going to be showing your long division because you may not know this by heart. 54 divided by 3. 3 goes into 5 one time. 1 times 3 is 3. 5 minus 3 is 2. Bring down your 4. 3 goes into 24 8 times. So 3, and then you can subtract. You get 0, so you know you're finished. 3 times 18 is 54. Okay, so 3 times 18 is 54. 54 is not divisible by 4. We know 12 times 4 is 48. We know that from measurement, 12 inches in a foot. Then 4 more would be 52, and then 4 more would be 56. So it's not a multiple of 4. Okay, it's not a multiple. That 5 is not a factor because it doesn't end in a 5 or a 0. 6, we know 6 times 9 by heart. That is 54. Okay, it is not divisible by 7, not divisible by 8. So these are all of our factors. So now we want to know the greatest common factor. So we look at 36 and move left. We start with the smaller. Obviously, they can't have anything greater than 36 in common. Do they have a 36 in common? No. Do they have an 18 in common? Yes. They both have 18. So the GCF is 8. Excuse me, the GCF is 18. Okay, and that was option D. Number 7, write the numbers in the correct order from least to greatest. So I know I'm working with least to greatest, so I'm going to start with all my negative numbers because I know they'll be smaller than my positive numbers. So we'll come to these in a moment. Least to greatest. So this is negative 32 1/4. So that's farther left than negative 32. So negative 32 1/4 is the least. And then negative 32 is slightly bigger. And then negative 31.7 would be just, don't forget the negative sign. And negative 31.7 will be just a little farther to the right. All right, now let's look at our positive numbers. This is 31 2/5. This is 31.75, 7,500. So they'll be very close. If we think of 31 2/5, we can easily change 2/5 into 10. Okay, so we want tenths because our decimals are all in, our place values are all factors of 10, tenths, hundredths, thousandths. Okay, so if I want to make this into tenths, which I do, what happened to my denominator? It was doubled. So what do I need to do to my numerator? It needs to be doubled, which will give us 4. So 4/10, if you say the word, if you read this fraction appropriately, 4/10, and you read its decimal equivalent appropriately, 4/10. So this can be written as 31 4/10, 31.4. So 31.4 compared to 31.75. 31.4 is smaller. So we'll write that next. 31 instead of 0.4, though, remember it was 2/5. So 31 2/5, and then 31.75. And that is our proper order from least to greatest. And that is enough. That's all we have time for today, right now. So we will look at the back of this review page together in class because I'm out of time for recording.